Howdy folks, welcome back to another marvelous anime video. If you're watching this one, you're likely like us and enjoy anime that's gritty and deals with mature themes. The 1980s and 90s was a golden era for this sort of anime, with nearly every series featuring some form of graphic violence or adult theme. However, even amongst them, there are a few names that stand above the rest, one of which is Ninja Scroll. Unlike most anime, this isn't an adaptation, it's a completely original film written and directed by legendary filmmaker Yoshiaki Kawajiri, known for Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, Wicked City, Demon City Shinjuku, and the Animatrix. This film is arguably his most successful creation and has a special place in the hearts of fans, especially in the West, where audiences weren't accustomed to seeing animated films tackling such mature and gritty themes. If you've ever watched Ninja Scroll, chances are you were both amazed and a little shaken by what you saw. This 1993 anime classic isn't just a high-speed samurai flick, it's a full-throttle ride through a dangerous supernatural version of feudal Japan where no one is safe and nothing is off the table. From shape-shifting assassins to battles that end in shockingly brutal ways, Ninja Scroll set a new standard for what adult animation could do. But what really makes these violent moments stand out isn't just the blood and chaos, it's how they serve the story. Every gruesome encounter reveals something important about the characters, their fears, and the ruthless world they live in. Whether it's a fight for survival, a personal vendetta, or a desperate act of sacrifice, the violence in Ninja Scroll is rarely random. It's raw, intense, and at times genuinely emotional. In this video, we're taking a closer look at some of the most violent and unforgettable scenes in the film, exploring not just what happens, but why it hits so hard. Whether you're revisiting the film or diving in for the first time, these moments are a big part of why Ninja Scroll remains such a bold and unforgettable piece of anime history. So strap in and join us as we bring to you 7 of the most violent and unforgettable scenes in this legendary anime. Let's begin. The violent deaths of the Koga Ninjas. In the early half of the first act of the film, we witness 8 riders riding through a village by the sea in a storm. The next day, it's revealed that the villagers have all died due to a mysterious plague. Upon receiving the report, the lord of the area decides to quarantine the village and tasks the Koga Ninjas, his subordinates, to investigate the truth about the mysterious men and the plague. The group of ninjas then gathers under their leader, Hanza, and makes their preparations for the mission. They are joined by a kunoichi named Kagero, who is eager to go with them on this mission to prove her worth as a ninja of the Koga clan. The group appears confident, knowing that their adversaries are only 8 in number, as they far outnumber them. As the group makes its way to Shimada village, moving stealthily across the tree branches, its leader notices that some of the members are lagging behind. The man he sends behind to check up on them notices that they've all been killed, but before he can react, he's strangled and hanged by a wire and brutally electrocuted to death. His dying screams of terror warn the rest of the group, but before they can gather, they sense a whirling double-headed polearm coming spinning out of the darkness, cleaving a number of them in 2. This keeps repeating before they realize the culprit is a monster with a rocky exterior. Despite Hanza's best efforts to slay this foe, all of his attacks prove to be impervious against his skin, even as his men begin to die. With their blood falling like rain from dismembered bodies, the Koga leader lunges at the monster to protect Kagero, but he's caught in midair by both his hands. As a horrified Kagero watches, Hanza begs her to escape in order to inform their lord. However, a mortified Kagero is frozen in fear, unable to move a muscle, and just when you thought this anime couldn't get more graphic, Hanza has his arms ripped off of his body. The monster then proceeds to guzzle his blood from the severed arm while leering at Kagero. This scene really flaunts the fluid animation techniques employed in the film and also makes the audience realize they're in for a gory, blood-soaked ride. Tessai's sexual assault of Kagero. This wouldn't be a Yoshiaki Kawajiri film without his trademark sexual assault scenes, and we don't say that in jest. What follows after the brutal murder of the Koga Ninjas is something that's objectively worse. The monster that had slain those ninjas is revealed to be a human ninja called Tessai, belonging to a group called the 8 Devils of Kimon. We witness this hulking brute undress and sexually assault Kagero in a cottage in a most graphic fashion. In order to gain her compliance, he even threatens to kill her and rape her dead body. The scene is uncomfortable, but in typical Kawajiri fashion, he tries to add some sort of eroticism to it, which only makes the whole affair even more unsettling. Kagero, who is initially presented to us as a strong, badass female ninja, is reduced to a sexual object in the blink of an eye. While later on, it's explained that this is indeed part of her ability, she most certainly did not consent to Tessai's actions. Even more than the violence that precedes it, this was the real kicker for audiences, particularly in the West, as they hadn't witnessed adult content of this manner in an animated film. It showed that animated films and series could cater to an adult audience and deal with more gritty and grim themes. This act really lays the groundwork for Kagero's character, as after this, the fierce warrior is no longer a warrior, and in her place is a woman who needs constant rescuing until she dies after being deceived in the end by Genma. This also isn't the final time she gets assaulted in this film, as yet another devil called Shijima violates her later on. While many have labeled this graphic depiction of sexual violence gratuitous and exploitative, others have defended it as a dark but honest depiction of the dangers in a cruel world, pointing out that it's a crucial part in Kagero's arc. We'd love to know your opinion regarding this controversial moment in the comments down below. Tessai's deserved gory death. While the ravenous Tessai is in the middle of violating Kagero, he becomes aware that there's somebody else in that hut with him and his victim. Despite his threatening Jubei, the protagonist begins to annoy him in an attempt to stop the fiend. However, when Tessai lunges at Jubei to finish him, he deftly blinds the monster by sticking Kagero's hairpin in his eye, making it burst. The two then make a quick getaway from the devil, who is stopped from pursuing them by Yorimaru, who is quite clearly higher up in the hierarchy than he is in their group. In the meantime, Kagero and Jubei part ways after she tells him the direction to his destination before breaking down in solitude while reflecting on all the horrific things she had to go through. Jubei, meanwhile, makes his way towards the next town, but along the way, he's ambushed by none other than Tessai, who had disobeyed orders and tracked the Ronin to exact his revenge. The brute initially pulverizes Jubei, but it's revealed that the protagonist had merely been holding back as payment for destroying Tessai's eye. However, when things don't look like they're going to simmer down, he begins to get serious and reveals his technique, which makes Tessai acknowledge that he was no ordinary fighter. Despite his powerful technique, Jubei doesn't manage to penetrate Tessai's rocky defense, but just as things begin to look hopeless, the ninja's rocky exterior begins to crumble, and, in frustration, he throws his weapon at Jubei, who deftly dodges it. The weapon then comes spinning back at Tessai, who reaches out to grab it, but before he can do so, Jubei takes advantage of his weakened state and slices his fingers off his hand. As a result of this, the weapon flies and buries itself into the brute's skull as his forehead slides across the edge of the blade, and he comes thundering down to the floor, dead. The sight of Tessai's skin almost melting from within, along with how his skull gets split open in such a brutal fashion, is oddly satisfying to witness because of who it happens to, but at the same time, it's extremely gory. This is the first devil that Jubei actually fights, and it really tells us just how powerful and supernatural these devils of Kimon truly are. Benisato's brutal execution. Having dispatched Tessai, Jubei arrives at a hot spring to cleanse his body and nurse his wound. However, he finds that he's not alone there, as a beautiful, pale-skinned woman lies across the hot spring with her back turned to him. It becomes apparent pretty quickly that this is no ordinary woman, as she engages Jubei in a conversation. Despite his attempts to brush off this seductive, pale-skinned woman with vipers tattooed on her skin, he sees the snakes on her tattoos begin to writhe around on her body as if they were alive, and he starts to fall into a trance. However, he's pulled out of this hypnosis when a shuriken hits him in the arm, causing him pain in the nick of time, as the snakes had indeed been real and were almost upon him. We find out that Benisato is able to materialize and unleash them upon her enemies with deadly effect. She herself proves to be as serpentine as her familiars when she's able to shed her skin just like a snake in order to dodge fatal blows from Jubei. Her entire character design is based around the erotic horror trope where a beautiful woman lures men to their deaths by using her charms. If not for Daquan's timely intervention, she would be the one who came the closest to killing Jubei after Genma. However, as her ambush had failed and she had become privy to new developments and players in this game, Benisato chose to retreat in order to report her findings. She gives this information to Yorimaru, who chastises her for letting her quarry escape, warning her that failure a second time would not be tolerated. We learn in between these scenes that Yorimaru longed for Genma to be his lover, which led him to reject Zakuro violently. The female ninja, however, taunts Yorimaru that while he pined for Genma, their leader was sleeping with Benisato. This leads to Yorimaru harboring ill feelings towards his now perceived competition. His jealousy and hatred for her are further fueled when he mockingly tells him that she will report to Genma directly in bed about her encounter with Jubei. This is when she fails to kill Jubei for the second time. Yorimaru exercises his discretion and kills her brutally by strangling and electrocuting her in his trademark fashion. The act is nothing short of a brutal execution done out of spite spite and jealousy, but masked in the guise of punishing a subordinate's incompetence. It's a terrifying sight as her naked body convulses violently, with her eyes and mouth gaping open before everything falls still. While Tessai's actions set the tone of the film, this showed that there was no loyalty at all amongst the devils of Kimon, and not even their own are spared from their brutality. When you combine this with how Jubei is coerced into taking this mission, it dawns on the audience that this is a world where the fate of the individuals in it is dictated by pure, unadulterated violence that doesn't distinguish between friend or foe. Hornets exploding from within Mushizo's body. The devils of Kimon keep coming at them at a rapid pace, with the group being pushed right to the edge with every battle. While every single battle with the devils is brutal and violent in nature, you can match the horror of Mushizo and his demise. Just looking at his appearance, Mushizo is the antithesis of a ninja, as he appears hunchbacked and not particularly athletic. This, however, turns out to be a mere illusion, as we quickly find out why someone like him is included in a group as powerful as the devils of Kimon. The reason he's hunched soon becomes apparent when he reveals that within his back is embedded a real full-sized hornet's nest. The visuals are disgusting as you witness these holes on his back from where insects are oozing out. The revulsion for insects, which many have combined with the idea of having them crawl inside your body, just makes Mushizo a prime example of body horror. He's able to control these hornets using some kind of telepathy, and they prove to be a challenge for even a swordsman as skilled as Jubei. Their sheer number alone almost annihilates the group, not allowing the protagonist and his friends to close the distance to cut down the monster. Luckily for Jubei, an opening presents itself, using which he throws the monster into a nearby river. This turns out to be a masterstroke as the hornets begin panicking after coming in contact with the water. The distressed insects turn on their master, stinging him to death from the inside out as he drowns helplessly screaming. The hornets explode from within his body in a satisfying end to one of the most disgusting characters in the entire series. It's ironic how the very hornets he controlled and probably used to terrorize countless people ended up being his own undoing. Zakuro's exploding corpses. If there's one individual in this entire series who's obsessed with death and destruction, it's Zakuro. Her sadism and bloodlust are perhaps not even matched by Genma, the main antagonist himself. For Genma, at least, he has a goal he's working towards, but for Zakuro, there is no such thing, and not even her own allies are safe from her. While some devils have the power of electricity or seduction, this character makes people explode. It's as simple as that, and in its simplicity lies its most visceral, carnage-laden spectacle. When Jubei and Kagero arrive at the village of Shimoda in pursuit of the devils and the gold-laden ship, they are confronted by Mushizo, Utsutsu, and Zakuro. While the group is able to dispatch the first two foes, Zakuro proves to be a much tougher nut to crack. We learn that her abilities aren't just limited to creating explosives, and that it's actually far more insidious in nature than that. Zakuro has the unique ability to transform anything into explosives, and her preferred medium seems to be corpses and even live human beings. This aspect of her personality transforms her ability into something that not only causes physical damage, but psychological damage as well. The sight of seeing another human being transformed into a shambling horror waiting to explode at any second is disturbing to say the least. Her ability not only kills people, but also does so while desecrating the corpses of the dead. She literally turns the dead into mere disposable tools. Every scene that she appears in, you know that death and explosions are a mere second away. Her ability to create booby traps out of these cadavers and trigger them far away makes her unique amongst the devils, who all rely on direct confrontations. The scene of those exploding corpses in the film is horrifying, not just because of the gore involved, but also due to the implied ritualistic nature of it. Zakuro doesn't just randomly make people explode, she carefully plans the action, prepares the trap, and then flings it at her enemies. The whole process is carefully planned, sadistic, and symbolic. One of the key moments in the film with regards to her character comes when she detonates a rat near Yurimaru, who is close to killing Jubei. She does this purely out of spite for his rejecting her feelings. The film Ninja Scroll is full of irony, and just as Yurimaru had killed Benisato, he in turn gets killed by Zakuro, who then goes on to die after Daquan sets off the explosives on the ship. Her death is also a spectacle as she goes down the same way as her victims in an agonizing blaze. We know that whenever this femme fatale shows up on screen, there's going to be gore and carnage. With Zakuro, there is no clean death, only dismembered bodies and desecrated corpses. Genma's gruesome grave of gold. During the climax of the film, Jubei and Genma finally come face to face for their ultimate showdown. We learn over the course of the movie that Jubei and Genma have a shared history, one which still haunts the protagonist. They had once belonged to the same clan, but Genma had instigated a conspiracy that had led to Jubei crossing blades with his own comrades, killing them in the process. As retribution for what they had been made to do, Jubei had decapitated his leader, who was none other than Genma. Yet here he stood, not a day older, with nothing but a scar across his throat to show for things that had happened that fateful day. As the blazing inferno begins to consume the ship due to Daquan's actions, Genma reveals his grand plan to Jubei, telling him that he was going to steal the gold for himself and overthrow both the Tokugawa and the Toyotomi to make himself the new shogun of Japan. Realizing that there is much more at stake than just his vengeance, Jubei attacks his former comrade in order to finally put him down for good. However, no matter how many times he cuts and cleaves him, Genma simply comes back to life. During the fight, he literally caves the man's skull in, but barely seconds later, that skull begins to mend, bringing the villain right back to life. He's also shown reattaching his arms as if nothing had ever happened. As the fight carries on, Genma begins to take control of the momentum as he breaks Jubei's arm. The hero, however, with his last bit of strength, manages to literally cut Genma into two pieces. Despite this, he begins to heal up once again, but before his split body can merge fully, a wave of molten gold washes over him, encasing him in it. We learn during the fight that while Genma might be an immortal, he feels every ounce of pain from the wounds he suffers. Due to this, as the villain howls in agony as every inch of his body is covered in the very gold he coveted, the ship begins to sink. Even when he's thoroughly defeated, he still manages to latch onto Jubei in an attempt to pull him down into a river of gold flowing beneath them. However, Jubei manages to cut his arm, sending the villain hurtling down into the bottom of the ocean, where the water rapidly cools the gold, turning him into a statue. The battle is fittingly graphic and gory for the penultimate fight of this already extremely violent film. Most fights in the series might be gory, but end with a fatal blow. However, in this encounter, the blood just keeps flowing as the villain is nigh immortal. What could have easily been a fatal blow turns into yet another display of gore and blood. His death is important not just for the spectacle aspect of it, but also for narrative reasons. It brings closure to Jubei's past that haunts him, while also avenging the death of Kagero. Just like the rest of his gang, Genma's death is full of irony as he sinks along with his dreams thanks to the very gold he coveted. Marvelous verdict! If we were to recount every minute violent moment in this anime, we'd be here for hours. However, we hope that from the moments we've chosen, you get a clear picture of just how much carnage and gore this anime is replete with. The action is brutal and fast-paced, with Jubei encountering newer foes at a rapid-fire pace. Through the gore and violence, along with the high-octane speed at which the narrative moves, fans are given almost no time to catch their breath. This is both a good and a bad thing, because while the action keeps flowing, keeping the audience on the edge of their seat, it leaves very little room for meaningful character and story development. If you're watching Ninja Scroll though, we don't really believe you're here for a deep and engaging storyline. That said, in its defense, we can say that the film's most violent moments aren't just for shock. They serve to highlight the harsh realities of survival, power, and sacrifice in a corrupt and dangerous era. While its intensity may not be for everyone, Ninja Scroll uses violence as a narrative tool to explore themes of trauma, justice, and resilience. From unforgettable duels to moments of raw emotional impact, these scenes continue to resonate with audiences for their visual boldness and storytelling weight. It remains a vivid reminder that even in the darkest of tales, strength and humanity can still shine through. We hope you enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed making it for you. Ninja Scroll has definitely carved out its own place amongst the most iconic anime films to have ever come to our shores from the land of the rising sun. If you want more content like this, be sure to check out our channel where we post daily videos featuring all of your favorite anime and manga, including Ninja Scroll. Also, be sure to let us know what your favorite moment from the film is down in the comments. For us, it's gotta be Genma's golden plunge. For now though, it's time for us to say goodbye. Thanks for sticking with us right to the end of this video. We hope to see you soon in the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.